3rd, 1896. So when the interior, this plaque is new, it was only, well, relatively new, only placed in 2004 after the interior restoration. Anton was crushed by one of those big blocks of limestone that you see on the outside, okay? So this is late 1800s, early 1900s. So a lot of this is, these blocks are being hoisted up by rope, okay, with kind of primitive sort of pulleys and mechanisms, and evidently something slipped and he was in the wrong place and he was killed. There's a little, what do you call it, apocryphal story about this incident that I heard from, I don't know, it was a great-granddaughter told me this. It was a story that came down in their family about Anton, that morning when he was getting ready to come over and work on the Basilica, a lot of the stone was pulled in wagons, pulled by horses back then. And so the men, if they owned horses, they would bring them over to work on the site. And so he went to the stable to get his horse out. And his horse was like being really stubborn and didn't want to come out and didn't want to work that day. So that story's told in their family that the horse knew, it was going to be a bad day. Okay. On this side, I want to point out the confessionals here, and also the first 7 stations of the cross are on this side. They are carved out of marble, and they the actual underneath there where it says what happened on that station. Okay, that's all important. And to this day, Polish is incorporated in these at Christmas time when they come to midnight mass and they're singing Polish Christmas carols. There's just a lot of little ways that heritage is still very much alive. So that's the first 7 stations. If you look across at the large story window, it's and you see, look for the keys on the left, all right, we'll come up this way a little bit. And one thing I want to say about St. Josaphat's is my husband and I have belonged here probably like a dozen years now. They use everything, okay, that you see. These confessionals are used for confession, okay, after the 7 o'clock mass every morning and at other times. So they're not just here as a reminder of the past, they're used. This pulpit is used on Christmas and Easter and other feast days. So we call this the grand pulpit. You can see it's all carved out of marble. Originally, there were statues in each of these little niches. But remember, in the 60s and 70s, we took out some of our statues and we somehow lost them. So if you see one at a rummage sale, you guys were in the undercroft. Did you see a lot of the statues down there? Those are some of the old statues, and they just, put them in the bathroom somewhere. Okay, this Mary altar, that, as I said, that's one of those original ones. This statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe, I believe this was purchased by the Christian women, so this is a more recent addition to the altar. Beautiful. All right, and as we come then to this other side altar, this is normally in the center, is a bas-relief of St. Margaret Mary Alacoque. And because of Divine Mercy Sunday, we have rigged this painting up so it can be set in there. And then it stays there for a few weeks, and then I think by the end of the Easter season, then they'll take it down again, and you'll be able to see Saint Mary, Margaret Mary, and she is the one that is associated with the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Okay, that particular painting. Here is our first one. This is called the papal chair. Every basilica has a special chair like this. So yeah, if the Pope did come, he would use that chair. But it's also used when the Archbishop comes, any other clerical dignitaries that might visit us, like from another country or whatever, that chair is used. But as you travel around in your travels and you come into a basilica, look around, you'll find that special chair, okay? All right, so as we come around here, now this is something that was done after the Second Vatican Council, and those of you, who are as old as me probably remember that your church probably had a renovation if you're still at the same church, right? Mm-hmm. So the altar was brought forward so that the priest can face the people and the people are closer to the altar. So instead of taking out our, what we like to call our high altar, a new altar was commissioned. But again, we are the parish of recyclers. So you see that medallion of the symbols of the Eucharist and the Holy Spirit. That little inset came from our original communion rail. And you can see off on the side the rest of that communion rail. Now picture this. This part was not here. This part that comes out like a half circle, that communion rail went all the way across the front and had like a little gate there for Father to come through. So there's a lot of pieces of that communion rail that were taken out. So they took that particular medallion of the Eucharist and put that in the new altar, okay? Now, if you look back to the high altar, you're gonna see the other two marks of the basilica. So on my left, do you see that gold stand with the long pole? I don't know if you can see well enough, but there's a bell on that. It's kind of like a decorative stand. It's golden. That's called the tintinnabulum. That's a second mark of a basilica. And what that's for is when you have liturgical processions, the server would be first in line with that staff with the bell on it, and the people would hear the bell and they would know the procession was coming, okay? Now, like I said, I've been at the Basilica about a dozen years, and we really do up the holy days well, and so we've sometimes had processions inside, we've sometimes had processions outside, and we use the tintinnabulum, okay? So that's your second mark of the Basilica. Look on the right-hand side of the high altar. Do you see that looks like umbrella for your patio, okay? That's called the umbrolino, literally means umbrella. Again, in a procession, one of the servers would be holding that umbrella over the popes or the bishop or archbishop or whoever, the highest cleric is in that procession. And I have seen that used here as well, okay? So the chair, the tintinnabulum, and the umbrellino are your three marks of a basilica. Go to a basilica anywhere in the world and look for those three, okay? All right, so just a moment with the high altar. Behind the high altar is our original mural of St. Josaphat. And I want you to look up again. Do you see the semicircular apse there in that little stained glass window? Do you see that figure in the center with his arms raised?
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the left you see Christ, on the right you see Mother Mary, then all kinds of wonderful angels. That is St. Joseph's glorification in heaven, okay? So down on earth, up in heaven, all portrayed by Filippo Raggi's murals. And I'm not going to go through all the murals, but a lot of the ones on the side are Polish saints, Saint Hyacinth, for instance. The high altar has this very ornate kind of canopy called a baldacchino. Have you all, either on TV or in person, seen the one in St. Peter's? Okay, so again, many St. Peter's. This, and the columns as well. So we did not remove our high altar after the Second Vatican Council. We got this altar to come close, but we still have our tabernacle back there, okay? And it really looks the way it did originally. The inset there of the Last Supper is based on Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. So if that looked familiar, that's what's going on there. I'm going to come right in front of you. Yes, but I have to consult my notes. Let me see if I can. Yes, it's in Latin. Okay, it says, "Behold God's dwelling place among men." The angel Gabriel and the Holy Spirit coming to tell Mary she'll be the mother of Jesus. And this icon in the center is more recent, and that is again Our Lady of Czestochowa. All right, the icon in the center. But this altar we call the Annunciation altar. And then over here, this is one of those old altars, St. Josaph. And this, you would have to go back a little bit, but there's a really interesting lunette painting about this altar. This is our St. Joseph's altar, but it's the death of St. Joseph, okay? And that's something we don't see portrayed a lot in art, is the death of St. Joseph. So I always notice that. Jesus with him, his mother with him, the little angels up there. I think you know about St. Josaphat's being a stop on the pilgrimage, where you can make the pilgrimage and get the indulgences. So that's Stella Maris, Mary, Star of the Sea, okay, to direct us and guide us. And again, we have the rest of the stations. As you look at that large story window across the way is Mary giving the rosary, Mary and Jesus giving the rosary to Saint Dominic, okay, and other saints on the side. So all of those big windows are from Innsbruck, Austria. The murals, there's murals over the side door. Those are actually murals of events in Polish history, okay? So again, the people would recognize that. Now, I'm going to go down the center aisle. We just want to pop in a pew to take the weight off for a minute. I'm going to talk about the...
I have a question.
There's a question here.
I have a question.
Sure.
What's this?
Baptismal font.
Oh.
Baptismal font. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is our baptismal font.
Ah.
It's relatively new, and I think it's wonderful. It's like a connection with the dome. Okay, so we see the dome on top, but the font itself is a hammered copper bowl. Okay, so again, it kind of connects with the dome itself. But all of this marble, guess where all that came from? The communion wheel.
Oh. So how do they get this off to baptize?
There's another handle there, so they probably have to lift it up.
Strong
people up.
Okay, so I think you just in the center aisle and just sit on these ends, because I'm going to talk about the dome. And I think it's easier if you're sitting down, because I know when I look up, I get dizzy. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the dome. into the center of the oculus. Okay, that circle way out top in the center. That actually
Wasn't there one in your
is a
church?
piece of
There might have been.
Hellfire.
When I made my first communion.
Used to be.
that is money for air conditioning.
I don't know what happened.
That was the air conditioning. Father could send, one of the bigger servers up there and they could move that crystal and let air in from the outside. The dome is actually a double dome. Now if you saw those pictures downstairs of the construction, you saw that iron dome, okay? And then this inside dome, of course, is made all of plaster. So, looking up, and I'm not going to be able to talk and look up, so I'm trusting that you're looking up, okay? So look at that oculus, that Austrian crystal, and then the next thing that you'll see are angels. Do you see the angels?
Yeah.
Okay, so what the artist wanted to portray here was, you remember reading in the Bible about the 9 choirs of angels, okay? So there are 8 angels, and they're representing 8 of the choirs, and now where did they go? Oh, they're up there.
There's someone over there.
Choir of angels, who are the archangels, are above the sanctuary. Do you see them?
Yeah.
Yes, and those are Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Uriel. Okay, the 4 archangels. Okay, back to the dome. Maybe put your head down and balance yourself a little bit before you look back up. So underneath the angels, you're going to find 8 roundels, okay? And those depict Old Testament prophets who foretold the coming of Jesus, who foretold the coming of the Messiah. And then under that are what we call lunettes, and those contain the evangelists, the apostles, and some of the doctors of the church. Underneath the lunettes are rectangular paintings. Now we're getting in the drum of the dome, and the rectangular paintings are the 7 sacraments and the adoration of the Magi. Now as you were coming down the dome, did you notice all the windows with images of Mary? Okay, so those are our Madonna windows from Switzerland, and they are portraying Eastern European images of Mary that the Polish people of this parish would know. Okay, all around the world, Mary has appeared. People pray to Mary in different images, and those are all Eastern European. Now, are you down to the large part of the dome where the inscription is? Okay, that's in Old Polish. It's from the first book of Kings. It says, "I consecrate this house you have built. I place my name here forever. My eyes and my heart will be here for all time." Okay? Now, and you might want to turn yourself a little bit, look up to the organ and the organ loft. The organ was refurbished in 2007. If you happen to be down here, visiting somebody or whatever, and you pop in for Mass, the organ fills this place. It's absolutely fabulous, okay? And when the organ was restored in 2007, remember, it's our nature to recycle, okay? So we had pipes from the original organ, and we looked around the state and around the country for extra pipes that, there was an old organ that was falling apart and people didn't want the pipes, and we eventually got enough pipes to have 46 what we call ranks of pipes, and they range from the size of a pencil to over 16 feet. And just a couple years ago, we further refined the refurbishing of the organ, and it just sounds better than ever. Now, if you look at the rose window above the organ gallery, we have symbolism up there too. You probably are familiar with a triangle with the eye in it. That's
No.
the ever watchful eye of God. But people say Masons, okay? That's a symbol that the Masons have used, okay? It's also on the dollar, okay? Because Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, they all belong to the Masonic order. So that was a symbol there. But we use it in our church as well as a symbol of the ever watchful eye of God. And then if you go around, so there's some sections that are decorative and then some sections that have symbols. And so they are the four evangelists. St. John is the eagle, St. Matthew is the human person, St. Mark a lion, and St. Luke an ox. Okay? All right, and then let me mention, as long as you're looking that way, above the vestibule doors, do you see the three bas-reliefs? Who are those guys? Okay, starting on the left is Cardinal Martinelli, who was the apostolic delegate to the U.S. when the church was dedicated in 1901. So he gets a big bas-relief. In the middle is Pope Leo XIII, okay, who was Pope at the time. And on the right is Milwaukee's Archbishop Xavier Katz, who was Archbishop. So they were all honored in that decoration. So I really want to thank you for visiting us today. You said you have a little time. If anybody's interested in these brown brochures, they can just go into a little more detail than what I did. And the gift shop continues to await your purchases. But we really do, this is a lively parish. It's kind of a destination parish. Certainly people that live in the area belong to the parish, but like I live way over near the airport and the lake, and we belong to this parish. People come from all over, and we usually come to the 8 o'clock mass, and the church is pretty well full at 8 o'clock. So it's a wonderful parish. It's here for the neighborhood, but it's here for Milwaukee, and it's here for our whole state. Okay, that we have this beautiful basilica. All right, thank you so much, and I hope your neck is okay. And if